Oswald suffered finger injuries in this incident. Can he begin the comeback today? Michael Brotherton is a rookie in pro dragster competition and is already 4th in points. His performance at Darlington has made him a real contender in this division. Kenny Bernstein is here with his Radical Buick LeSabre. He won the Darlington event and is the funny car points leader. Can he continue the streak, or will someone dethrone the king? ESPN, the world's leader in motorsports coverage, presents Speed World. We welcome you to Rockingham, North Carolina. It's a beautiful weekend for drag racing. Event number 2 on the IHRA schedule for 1987, the All-Pro Motorcraft Pro-Am Nationals. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bob Jenkins along with Larry Newber. Some questions as we enter the drag racing competition here this weekend. We mentioned some of the questions. Can Mark Oswald come back? What about Michael Brotherton? And can Kenny Bernstein keep the streak alive?
The answers appear to be yes to every one of the above. Everybody seems to be getting more and more competitive. Let's go to the Pro Alcohol Funny Cars, for instance. Bob Newberry looks very tough again, and Bunny Burkett, she's always out there looking in the shadows. And the times are kind of representative of all this. If you can't turn, for instance, a 7.4 in the Pro Stock Division, you're not in the hunt. If you can't go 5.8 in the Pro Funny Cars, unless your name's Kenny Bernstein, you're probably out to lunch. And a 5.6 is now commonplace in the Dragster Division.
And as we go to the pit area now, let's get some opening comments from our pit reporter for the afternoon. Here is Brett Kepner.
It's not only a high traction track, it's also a very, very hot racetrack. Temperatures in the 90s sometimes make track conditions tricky, but horsepower and brains can come to the aid of drivers in distress. Today we'll be seeing action in the Pro Nitro Dragster, Pro Nitro Funny Car, Pro Alcohol Funny Car, and Pro Stock categories. The action is guaranteed to be wild here at the Rock for the Pro-Am Nationals.
Thank you, Brett. Well, the action is about to unfold here in Rockingham, and it's all being brought to you by Motorcraft quality parts for all makes of cars and trucks. They exceed the need. And by Drag Review, all you need to know about drag racing. Our eliminations are about to begin here in Rockingham. Championship drag racing sanctioned by the world's fastest growing sanctioning body, the IHRA. Ready for the quarterfinals in Pro Funny Car competition here at Rockingham, and this contest is going to pit Doc Holliday in a Dodge Daytona in the near lane against Steve Hodkinson from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma in the far lane. Steve's driving a Dodge Daytona.
Bob, in this classification, everybody is shooting for Bernstein. It's kind of interesting. This classification, as well as the Pro Dragsters, we have a clear-cut favorite. The other two major classifications up for grabs.
Doc Holliday is going to win with a 601 ET, a speed of 240.64 miles an hour, as Steve Hodkinson began smoking as he neared the end of the run, and you can see quite a bit of smoke coming from that car right now, but Holliday is the winner and goes into the semis.
Here's the top end. You can see Holliday taking over right here. He told us before this particular runoff began that he wanted to be very careful about not smoking the tires. You can see him there on the left. He really accomplished his goal. That's not smoking tires on the right side for Hodkinson. You can see the flames coming out. He's got mechanical problems. That's not rubber.
Indeed he has, as we switch now to the far end of the drag strip, and you can see the fire extinguishers being used to put out the small fire that erupted from that engine. Quite a bit of smoke continuing to pour from it, and Steve Hodkinson has a lot of work to do to get ready for the next IHRA race.
Bob, everybody is trying to max out because the man right there on your screen appears to be invincible right now. The Buick LeSabre of Kenny Bernstein.
His opponent in this quarterfinal round is going to be Ernie Wren from New Augusta, South Carolina. It's Chevy Corvette in the near lane against Kenny's Buick LeSabre in the far lane, and Kenny gets off to a great start, is going to win going away.
Well, Wren's best ET coming in was 7.2. You can see Bernstein cranked off another one of his mid-range 5 points, 5.7s. Wren was a tremendous underdog as this particular runoff began, and it turned out that way also.
Now set to go is Mark Oswald in a Ford Thunderbird from Cincinnati, Ohio, member of the Motorcraft Super Team. His opponent in this quarterfinal round in a Pontiac Trans Am is going to be Tom Hoover from Maple Grove, Minnesota.
And in that category of not being one of the favorites, Bob, Hoover. Now, for Hoover to do well in this one, he's got to hit it right on the money at the line. When that green light goes, he's got to hit it right on the button. He got a great start, and he's staying with Mark down the strip.
Let's watch it. It looks like Oswald is going to win, but it wasn't a bad race at all. Oswald with a 574, a speed of 251.39 miles an hour. So Oswald the winner as the Candies and Hughes crew goes down to greet Mark, but it was an excellent race.
Bob, our camera angle was kind of a fooler because it looked like a pretty substantial win for Oswald, but actually they were both within about a tenth of a second, a couple of side-by-side 250-mile-an-hour runs. Good race.
The crew takes off the car covering as Mark Oswald climbs out. Here's a replay, and again, it's a little deceptive. It was a much closer race than it appears. Let's go down to the finish line.
Well, that was a close race. Hoover was less than a tenth behind you.
Yeah, it was a good race, a real good race. We were happy to get down there. You know, we were having problems all weekend, and now the Motorcraft Thunderbird seems to be getting right down there, so we're happy.
Looks like the comeback may have begun.
I hope so.
There is Scott Coletta, who's getting set to go in our next contest. His opponent will be Jim Head. And look at the radical body styling on this Olds Forenza that Jim Head has brought here to Rockingham this weekend. This should be a good race. Coletta near lane, Head in the far lane. The green goes on, and Jim Head gets the jump, and smoke coming from Scott Coletta's car. Head wins.
Jim Head, who really is down on speed, at least to this meet, only a 5.9, but as Bob mentioned that Coletta had problems, he was only 6th in miles per hour, but he was the second fastest qualifier. Head was in this meet, whereas Scott Coletta was 3rd in miles per hour.
There you can see the winners in our quarterfinals: Doc Holliday, Kenny Bernstein, Mark Oswald, and Jim Head. So they all move to the semifinals, which will be coming up a little bit later in our program.
Pro Nitro Dragsters. Nitro because that's just not something to call them. That's what they actually burn. This is not pump gasoline. This could be an interesting run because Michael Brotherton's had a pretty decent weekend. 6th qualifier among all the dragsters, but he's going up against one of the big men in IHRA drag racing, Joe Amato.
Joe Amato won the Darlington IHRA race earlier this year, and Brotherton lost to Darrell Gwynn in the semis at Darlington. So, yes, indeed, this could be a very interesting race here. It's Amato in the far lane.
There may be a chink in Amato's armor this weekend. He was only the 3rd fastest qualifier. You figure him to be 1st or 2nd to Darrell Gwynn.
Here we go. Some smoke
Brotherton
coming from...
Oh, look at Amato.
Oh, a big flame out.
Joe Amato's flaming across the line there. Brotherton looked like he had lost it, looked like he had some tire spin, looked like he broke loose, but Amato's car is still simmering as he comes to a look at the top of that blower. Oh, that is a blowing engine.
And the fire crew's right there to extinguish the flames as Joe Amato climbs out. So some tough luck as he had the lead, but then the engine let go, and Michael Brotherton defeats Joe Amato.
Well, he still ran a 5.6. It was a 5.68 run to a 5.67 for Brotherton, and Brotherton gets one handed to him.
There you can see the replay and the big explosion of fire. Brotherton is the winner. Let's go to the line.
Well, with this kind of damage, that 280-mile-an-hour combination might be out of the picture.
Well, actually, this isn't our good engine combination. We put that in the corner, and we're trying to develop some new parts here. This is a different blower and fuel system we're trying to plug in, so we have a backup system to the one that goes 280. So we're breaking in some new parts here, so I don't think it'll hurt as far as being able to repeat where we were. The interesting thing will be to see what caused the failure.
Well, we hope to see you again on the IHRA trail after this unfortunate upset.
Yeah, that's racing. You have to be willing to take the good with the bad. Sometimes you win, sometimes the bear wins.
So a very philosophical Joe Amato goes down to defeat here. Now we move to the next round of competition. This is Connie Coletta from Ypsilanti, Michigan. In the near lane, his opponent is going to be Darrell Gwynn, the kid from Miami, Florida, who lost to Amato in the finals at the Darlington event earlier this year.
Well, if anybody can unseat Darrell Gwynn, this crusty old veteran might be the man who can do it. Coletta's had a machine that's now been performing up to the level of performance of Gwynn's car, but he's an old veteran, and Coletta does not get off the line strong.
It's Darrell Gwynn to the far lane, winning with a 5:43 and a 252.10 mile-an-hour run.
Well, it could be another weekend of more of the same. Another 250 plus and a 5.4 for Darrell Gwynn. He's got to have everybody talking.
You're looking at Bob Strauss from Stone Mountain, Georgia. And his opponent is going to be Richard Holcomb from Bolton, Alabama. And the green goes on already, and Holcomb in the far lane defeats Strauss.
Holcomb almost got a free pass, it seemed as though, that time. Now, Holcomb, he was the second fastest qualifier, so the level there that looked so comfortable might have been a little deceiving. Yep, it's a 5.4. Holcomb is down below 5.5, so Holcomb's having a good meet.
Now getting set to go is Gene Snow against Frank Bradley. Bradley in the near lane and Snow in the far lane. Gene Snow lost to Darrell Gwynn in the quarters at Darlington. In the quarters here at Rockingham against Frank Bradley.
The Snowman against Mr. Bradley. Snow has been around quite some time, hasn't had the success that a lot of the other veterans have had. I think he lost an inch and ran at the line, and that might have put Bradley into the winner's circle.
That was a close contest, though. Bradley wins it with a 5:78 at 249.30. So there are the four drivers that now move into the semis of Pro Nitro Dragsters: Brotherton, Gwynn, Holcomb, and Bradley.
Among the other three contenders, is there one that can sideline the apparent juggernaut of Darrell Gwynn? We'll find out.
More IHRA drag racing from the All-Pro Motorcraft Nationals at Rockingham in just a moment. We're at Rockingham, North Carolina for IHRA drag racing, and in the first round of competition, Tim Neighbors went up against Bob Glidden, and there was a major upset.
Well, there you can see Neighbors on the near lane, and Tim Neighbors, who was only the 14th fastest qualifier, noses the favorite Bob Glidden out, one of the big favorites, right at the finish line. Glidden had been the third best qualifier, but Neighbors really pulling a giant rabbit out of a big hat.
So Tim Neighbors moved to the quarterfinals of Pro Stocks that we'll have in just a few moments. Right now, we move to alcohol funny car competition. It is Pat Austin going against Ron Scott.
The Pro Alky Funnies, like with the Pro Stockers, it's kind of a wide open situation. In each of the Pro Funny Cars and the Pro Dragsters, we have clear-cut favorites, but in this division, lots of competitive cars, lots of people capable of turning off high miles per hour and low ETs, and one of the really strong people, Pat Austin, is in this race.
Austin would have to be considered the favorite of this particular event with Ron Scott, as Austin moves up and lights the Christmas tree lights, the staging lights, now getting set for the green. Scott blasts off the line, but he red lights. Ron Scott has red lighted. Pat Austin is going to get the win here.
Oh, Bob, listen to this. Austin has cranked off a good one. Austin's at 6.307. That is a brand new IHRA world record for this classification. 6.307, and he goes 220 miles per hour.
Unbelievable. Pat Austin wins over Ron Scott, who red lighted as Austin's crew goes down to greet him. They're the other winners in the quarterfinal competition of alcohol funny cars. Bob Newberry was a winner. So was Gene Bull and Bogey Kell.
And the big question in this classification is, can anybody catch Mr. Austin?
Now back to Pro Stock quarterfinal competition. As we have in this particular contest, Bob Harris going against Kenny Tripp.
Tripp is somewhat of a surprise to get this far along. You can see the run coming down the line. It's getting a little closer down there at the top end.
But Kenny Tripp pulls off the victory with a 7:79 That's a 174.75 mile-an-hour run. His speed considerably slower than Bob Harris, but nevertheless, Kenny Tripp is the winner. Now, the winner at the IHRA race in Darlington earlier this year, Ricky Smith, going up against Terry Adams in the near lane.
Terry Adams from Wilkesboro, North Carolina, in a Pontiac Trans Am, and Ricky Smith, of course, in the familiar Ford Thunderbird, another North Carolinian. Ricky Smith's traditional home, of course. Talk about kings of the mountain. Well, this is King, North Carolina.
Both cars getting staged now, set to go. Smith and Adams. The revs begin to come up. The light goes on, and off the line, Ricky Smith with about a full car length advantage as they near the end, and Smith wins it. And we do have a red light on Terry Adams, so Smith wins anyway, but it's a 741, a 189.87 mile-an-hour run.
Moving right along, here comes Mr. Neighbors. Mr. Neighbors is back up. He's the guy who is having a good meet. And because of his performances up to this point, he has positioned himself as one of the favorites, despite the fact that he qualified well out of the top 8.
His opponent in this round is going to be Jerry Haas, who hails from St. Louis, Missouri, in a Chevy Camaro. And Tim Neighbors, of course, also in a Camaro. Haas is in the far lane.
Haas unseated, the number 6 qualifier. Charlie Peppers is a good start.
Another red light. Another red light for Jerry Haas. And so Tim Neighbors wins.
Well, oftentimes you are a little bit conservative when you sense the guy next to you has red lighted, but at 189 miles an hour, Tim Neighbors is anything but conservative. Bob, he's feeling his oats today.
He sure is. Of course, he did defeat Bob Glidden in the first round, and now defeats Jerry Haas on a red light here in the quarterfinals. Let's go down to Brett Kepner, who's with him, talking about the win over Glidden.
Well, Tim Neighbors, 752, I believe. The second time in your life you got around Bob Glidden.
Feels real good. He's a real hard competitor, and he's real hard to outrun.
Easily one of the toughest here this weekend, and with this car running under these hot conditions in the low 750s, you might have an edge.
Well, it's going to have to come around a little to be able to do any good, but it might do it.
Well, good luck to you next round.
Thank you very much.
And Tim Neighbors moves into the semifinals. Now here in our next quarterfinal event is Ed Dixon against Bob Olson.
Two of the lesser-known names in terms of when you consider people like Glidden and so forth in this particular division. But as we mentioned to you, the pro stock division seems to be opening up. They've become very well organized. They have an internal house newsletter, so to speak, that represents the entire pro stock division. And everybody seems to be improving week after week.
Ed Dixon in a Ford Thunderbird and Olson in a Pontiac Trans Am. Now Dixon lost to Ricky Smith in the quarters at Darlington. Let's see what happens here in the quarterfinals at Rockingham. In the near lane, no, the far lane rather, it is Bob Olson who comes off with a 188.28, a 743 ET.
Wow, you can see some joy there. Both of those guys absolutely hitting it right on the money at the top end. The reaction time, .045 for Olson, who won, .022 for Dixon. They both are in the high 180 miles an hour, and a 7.4 and a 7.5, and Olson with a 7.4 ET winning this one.
And there you can see the pro stock grid now, as in the semifinals will be Tripp, Smith, Neighbors, and Olson.
Boy, I'll tell you, roll the dice and pick one. This could be a really interesting couple runs here for the championship.
So we'll be ready for semi-final round competition at the All-Pro Motorcraft Pro-Am Nationals at Rockingham, North Carolina, right after this. Ready for semi-final activity in Pro Funny Car here at the All-Pro Motorcraft Pro-Am Nationals at Rockingham, North Carolina. It's going to be Jim Head from Westerville, Ohio here in the semifinals, and his opponent is going to be Mark Oswald.
A couple of Ohioans going at it one after another. Mark Oswald, a 3-time, including 1986 world champion. He cranked off a 5.7 in his most previous round, defeating Tom Hoover.
Motorcraft car of Mark Oswald in the far lane, and this beautiful car of Jim Head in the near lane. We have a in-car camera, so to speak, in the chase vehicle, will be going down the strip after this run is over to get the winner. And the green light goes on. Oh, and Head pulls out to a tremendous advantage and wins it. Something obviously went wrong with Mark Oswald.
Well, Head backs down just a shade to 247.59, and there you can see from the inside of Mark Oswald's chase car, the car that was to meet Mark when he got to the end of the line. Disappointment. They're going to go back down the strip, find out exactly what happened with Mark, but their day as far as competition is over. As far as work goes, their week has just begun. You can see that Oswald losing what looks like to be a blower belt there, just not more than 100 feet off the line.
Tough break for Mark Oswald. Now the crew goes to retrieve it.
Well, what those belts power are those huge blowers that sit on top of those nitro-burning Pro funny cars, allowing more air to get inside of those huge engines, meaning more horsepower.
There's a belt that spelled disaster for Oswald. Let's go down to the Pro dragster pits. Richard Holcomb's crew doing a lot of work. Here is Brett Kepner.
The tremendous 5.49-second run by Richard Holcomb apparently took its toll. One burned piston and some bearing damage necessitated a quick teardown, but the mechanic of this particular machine is used to the hard thrash of professional drag racing. He's Clayton Harris, a legend in his own right in the Pro Nitro Dragster ranks. Back in the 1970s, he was one of the quickest in the sport. And Clayton, obviously the piston has been replaced and we're just about ready to go.
Yes, sir.
The big question is, do we still have a 540 combination left in the Holcomb machine?
Oh, yes, sir. We should run about a 541 this trip. Everything holds together and works right.
Clayton Harris, the 1978 Pro Dragster World Champion in IHRA, now to semifinal Pro Funny Car competition. Kenny Bernstein up against Doc Holliday. There is a good shot of Doc, who's from St. Paul, Minnesota. And then the king, Kenny Bernstein from Newport Beach, California, looking for win number 2 this year in IHRA.
Harris predicting a 5.4 when we get to the funny cars. Well, that's still Earnhardt optimism for you. But anyway, right now to the funny cars, and the main man so far of 1987, Kenny Bernstein, lines up in the far lane, and Halliday with the Dodge Daytona Telstar, it's been christened. Oh, it's a good one at the line.
Kenny has the lead going down, but it's a pretty good race with Holliday. Bernstein wins, though. It's a 572 for Kenny Bernstein, a 254.95 mile-an-hour run.
Halliday didn't have a bad run at 5.975 there in the near lane, 241 miles an hour. Actually beat Kenny off the line, but just a tad. A reaction time of 197 thousandths of a second to 204.
Well, Kenny Bernstein's reaction time not quite as good, but he wins anyway against Doc Holliday. Brett Kepner is with him. Here's Kenny Bernstein.
Kenny, a 572, an excellent run considering the conditions, but a lot of smoke.
Well, it looks like we blew some type of an oil line off or something. There shouldn't have been anything wrong with the engine. It's been safe all weekend, so I'm sure there's something, the lines come loose or something. I hope that's what's wrong.
Well, it'll probably necessitate a teardown, though, to check the problem, right?
Well, we'll have to take it down apart anyway. That's what we do to check and make sure that there's anything wrong with the car, put it together so it's first class when it goes back up. Because when you go to the starting line, you got to have the Budweiser Quaker State Buick ready to win. That's the only way to do it.
So it'll be Kenny Bernstein against Jim Head in the finals of Funny Car competition coming up in just a few moments. Kenny Bernstein will have the lane choice.
Of course, lane choice goes to the man based on his previous performances in this particular meet. The lane conditions have been reasonably consistent so far this weekend.
Now to Pro Nitro Dragster competition, semifinal round. It is Darrell Gwynn getting set to go against Frank Bradley. There's a good look at Frank, who hails from Napa, California. His opponent in the Budweiser Quaker State machine will be Darrell Gwynn from Miami, Florida.
Well, Bradley knocked off the Snowman in the last round. Bradley's a veteran racer. Darrell Gwynn, of course, racing out of the Kenny Bernstein stables this year, has been taking this type of drag racing by storm so far in 1987. He has quickly established himself as the man to beat. Gwynn got past Connie, the veteran, another veteran, Connie Coletta, in the first round when he did a 5.4 through 52 miles an hour.
Here we go. It's Darrell Gwynn off the line first, and it's going to be Gwynn winning.
Easy run for Darrell Gwynn. Boy, it looked easy, but he's still got another one of those 5.4s. 5.4, 5.6 for Darrell Gwynn this time.
A 259.36 mile an hour run. And there is the difference between Darrell Gwynn and Frank Bradley, as Darrell has climbed out of the car and congratulates Frank Bradley on a nice run. Michael Brotherton getting set to go here in the semifinal round. He's from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and his opponent is going to be Richard Holcomb. And obviously the work that we saw being done to the Holcomb car a little bit earlier has been completed. Both are set to go.
Interesting runoff, Bob. Holcomb had his career best ET in the last round. You heard his crew chief predict another 5.4. And Brotherton, despite being 31 years of age, is just a rookie. And
we have a red light for Richard Holcomb, who left way too soon. And Brotherton gets the win here against Holcomb and moves to the finals.
Boy, that is deflating. It's kind of deflating for both of these guys. We mentioned that both of them look like they're having their best meet ever their career. You can see Holcomb taking off long before it's legal. And Holcomb, all that work that we saw going on down in the pits is down the drain as he simply red lights, and it is absolutely no contest.
Sort of interesting because Brotherton, the engine in this car, has been bought from Darrell Gwynn, and those two will be going at it head-to-head in the finals of Pro Nitro Dragsters here at Rockingham.
Boy, what a luxury, going 129 miles an hour, and you get into the finals of the Pro Dragster class.
Now an ESPN IHRA track back brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil. New Quaker State with QSX keeps your engine cleaner to last longer.
While the quarter-mile racetrack may seem as just a ribbon of asphalt and concrete, it too requires a tremendous amount of preparation, sometimes more preparation than the cars that race on it. Each and every morning, the professional track services crews who are in charge of keeping the racetrack clean and race-ready throughout IHRA events come out and scrub down the starting line. The key is traction to keep the racing surface clean and free of debris for the ultimate hookup or traction for the race cars. It'd be kind of a hard choice to pick a cleaner that would do the job, but believe it or not, regular old household detergent, a very popular brand, seems to do it quite well. This is the key to some of the record-setting times you see at IHRA National Championship events.
We have more IHRA drag racing for you coming up. We're at the All-Pro Motorcraft Pro-Am Nationals at Rockingham, North Carolina.
Close Calls is the video biography of drag racing's active living legend. In Close Calls, Pat and Don Garlitz reminisce on 35 years of drag racing history.
It was already moving so hard with that air under it, it went straight up, and I had no control over it, and over she went backwards. And I'll tell you what, I thought I was in big trouble.
Call 1-800-CAR-FUEL. Regularly $29.95, now only $19.95, plus $3 shipping and handling.
From drag race to NASCAR, motorsport world champions like Richard Petty know Autometer is involved at the track to develop the best instruments for racers and drivers. Autometer, the innovator of the Pro Cop memory tachometer and liquid fill gauges, brings you Auto Gauge. This race-inspired line of tachometers and gauges provide the accuracy and dependability you need for your performance car. Remember, Autometer is America's racing instrument specialist. Send $2 for complete catalog to Autometer, Sycamore, Illinois. Autometer, we are involved.
Jenkins, Larry Newber, and Brett Kepner back at Rockingham, North Carolina. We're ready for semifinals in alcohol funny cars. The matchup here features Gene Bowl from Baytown, Texas, against Bob Newberry from Schenectady, New York.
At least in recent history, Newberry has the advantage here, but remember the name of Dean Thompson and that famous Mustang out of that stable. Also remember the name Ronnie Sox. Well, this car owner had a world championship in the past in pro stocks with Ronnie Sox, and Bull has that at least on his side.
Newberry goes into this race as the points leader in this division, and Newberry is going to win it.
Well, Bull looked like he got a bad start, but he came on strong at the end. You can see that already Newberry is straight to an advantage as they immediately cross the line just past the Christmas tree. Bull comes on, but he just could not make up that deficit that he lost at the very start.
It's a 6:45 for Bob Newberry at 2:17.91. And now he will move to the finals, and his opponent is going to be either Bogey Kell, who is in his first outing here in 1987, against Pat Austin from Tacoma, Washington.
Remember that Pat Austin had that rollicking 6.3, 220 miles per hour in the last run against Ron Scott. Austin comes in with a great deal of confidence. He has been hitting right on top of the money in terms of his reaction time. He had a .099 on his last run. He had a .065 in the quarterfinal run. So Pat Austin, can he do it again?
Bogey Kell defeated Greg Moss in the quarterfinal round, and now we see Pat Austin grabbing the lead as they go down. A close race, but Austin wins.
Boy, I'll tell you, he's looking like Superman this week. Look at that, another 220 miles per hour. That's the second one in a row for Pat Austin.
A 6:30 for Pat Austin, a great run, and he has to go into the finals as the favorite, although he will have some strong competition from Newberry.
Bob, not only another 220, but exactly the same speed, 220.58. This one was a 6.347, so he slowed down considerably from a 6.307, 40 hundredths of a second, or thousandths of a second.
A happy crew goes to greet him, and there is Pat Austin climbing out of that Olds. So in alcohol funny car competition, the finals will have Bob Newberry going up against Austin, and Pat will have Delane Joyce. Moving to pro stock semifinals now. Tim Neighbors from Lawrenceville, Georgia, who's had a tremendous weekend so far, will be going up against Kenny Tripp from Knightdale, North Carolina.
Neighbors really has had a good weekend. We were talking about him a little earlier, Bob, about how he had qualified down, it was like 13th or 14th fastest only, and he's moved up through the ladder, and he has faced pretty stout opponents at every step of the ladder, but he has come out on top each time. It almost seems like it's ordained for him to have a good, strong weekend.
Kenny Tripp, this is the first time he's ever made the field for an event, and Tim Neighbors is going to win.
Well, we talked about that ordained. That one was certainly served on a silver platter. Tim Neighbors, he goes 187 just like the last round. He didn't look like he had to go as hard as he did. Jerry Haas had a problem with the line when he red lighted. Neighbors still went 189 on the previous round. He goes 187 here. So Tim Neighbors disposes of not only those two people, but also remember Bob Glidden earlier today.
Tim Neighbors is in the finals. His opponent will be either Ricky Smith from King, North Carolina, or Bob Olson from Elgin, Illinois. Those two are set to go in the semifinals. It is Ricky Smith in the far lane and Bob Olson in the near lane as both get staged and preparing to go a quarter of a mile to see who goes into the finals here at Rockingham. Green light goes on. Ricky Smith out to the advantage. Close race, though, and Smith wins it.
Ricky Smith, who was the only driver down into the 7.3 range in qualifying, doesn't quite match it, but 7.4, 188 miles per hour will probably get you to the next higher rung of the ladder almost every time.
However, Bob Olson runs 192.30, although he loses, but that's the top speed of this meet. So the Pro Stock Finals will have Tim Neighbors against Ricky Smith, and Smith will have Delane Joyce. Well, not only are the dragsters themselves sophisticated, but also the way they're brought to the racetrack. Here's Brett.
One aspect of professional drag racing that many fans don't get a chance to see is the interior of some of the transporters used by the sport's biggest teams. We're inside the brand new machine manufactured by Warrior Manufacturing of Henderson, Texas, built for Gene Snow, the Pro Nitro dragster racer. And it may look like a nice, clean garage or a condominium, but this is virtually a rolling workshop for the Snowman's Pro Nitro dragster team. Down here on the main floor, we have parking area not only for the team's support vehicle, but the ramps for where the car is actually stored. But down here, nothing but drawers. Lots of tools, lots of spare parts, some of the smaller pieces of equipment used on the machines. Over here, already lined up and ready for action in the next qualifying or elimination round. Complete sets of pistons and connecting rods ready to be slammed right into the motor. Spare spark plugs, lots of diagnostic equipment. When we move up to the next floor, over here on this side is where the computer tapes used from the onboard computer that records all the information during the quarter-mile run are analyzed, checked, and obviously verified for any changes that may be needed in the car. The giant screen color TV, by the way, is actually a monitor that isn't used for entertainment purposes. Videotapes of each qualifying and elimination run are very carefully scrutinized on an instant replay system. There's a third level to this particular transporter. Up here is where the car is kept, the actual dragster itself, but it's also a large storage area for tires, rear ends, differentials, exhaust headers, and other major parts that can't be fit in some of the smaller drawers. And by the way, this unit is completely air-conditioned, completely heated. It has just about every comfort at home.
Thank you, Brett. Well, the Sportsman Division coming up on ESPN's IHRA drag race from Rockingham, North Carolina. Work going on in the pit area, but there's action on the track. The Sportsman Division. Here's the stock finals with Ray Head, the 85 world champion, against Barry Shepard.
Oh, you can see the red light. Shepard has red lighted this one. He's going to lose. This is the stock classification. We know that many of you are familiar with drag racing, but for those of you who are not, we will be filling in a little bit of the detail as to the various characteristics of each of these mini divisions. There are over 70 categories here in the stock classification, and Head wins.
Hot Rod Division, 95-car field. We're down to Charlie Weiscarver and Gil Ruth.
There's a breakout time on this of 10.90. You cannot go faster than that, or you are disqualified.
Weiscarver, the 1986 world champion in this division, and he wins this meet with a 109.48 mile-an-hour run.
You can see at 11.0, he just barely comes in under the breakout.
103-car field in the Super Rod Division. The finalists are Jimmy Jackson and Joe Tankersley.
A breakout of 9.90. This is a good run. They're right down the line together. As they cross the line, whose race is it going to be? I tell you, both of them turned 9.9s. Outstanding run.
Brett Kepner has found out that IHRA drag racing is a family sport.
While the professional category pit area at IHRA National Championship events draws the most attention in between elimination rounds, it's here in the sportsman category pit area that you'll find one of the most efficient pit crews in all of drag racing. I'm talking about the family effort of the Mitchell family. Driver Dennis Mitchell, a three-time IHRA Modified Eliminator world champion, his wife Adana, and his daughters Teresa and Karen. And Don, after 3 world championships, I think you've proven that your crew knows what they're doing.
Yeah, they know what they're doing. I got a lot of help from them. My wife, Adana, she keeps up with a lot of paperwork, keeps everything straight as far as the pairing goes and all that type of thing. My 2 daughters, Teresa and Karen, they keep me straight, keep the car going. They know all about it. They know how to pull the motor, take the motor apart, put it back together, put it back in the car, anything involved from one end to the other of the car. And when we get to the race, they keep me going. They keep changing things on the car, trying new things, trying to make the car go faster. So they're just a big part of the operation.
Now moving to the super stock class, it's Hunt Sharon against Jim Reynolds.
There are 4 categories in the super stock classification. Sharon's from Greensboro, North Carolina. Reynolds is from Franklinton, also in North Carolina. They have dial-in ETs here.
And Hunt Sharon wins with a 10:41. Now in the quick rod division, it's Randy Cook against the 2-time world champion Steve Cohen in the far lane, and Cohen red lights.
Now the breakout time here is 8.90. Gives you an idea how close to a professional category you really are, and it's really surprising to see somebody like Cohen red lighting here in the finals as Randy Cook wins the championship.
In the modified class, Becky Crowder is in the left lane and J.B. Bowman in the right lane.
Now, these may look like street cars, but these are purebred dragsters. Corvette versus a T-Bird. Close down the end.
Crowder's in his first ever final event, but Bowman beats him, and Bowman registers his first big win. The top sportsman class had the quickest field in history. Butch Supton broke on a burnout, and that's going to allow Jim Carlton the victory.
Well, Carl didn't have to, but he turned 166, almost 167 miles an hour to win the championship.
We have the finals coming up from the IHRA drag race at Rockingham, North Carolina. The finals are upon us in the All-Pro Motorcraft Pro-Am Nationals at Rockingham, North Carolina. Here in Pro Stock, the finalists are Ricky Smith and Tim Neighbors. Smith is in the far lane.
Neighbors in the near lane. As you look at Ricky Smith, Neighbors right there in the bright red painted Chevy Camaro. It seems like the gods have been on his side all this weekend. Now, Smith has lane choice, and we understand the starter has offered to put down traction compound for him. He has said no.
It's Tim Neighbors' first
Oh, look at
final
Smith.
round appearance, and he's going to win it as Smith breaks at the line.
I tell you, it's been this way all weekend. Neighbors was just supposed to win this one. You can see that very happy crew. The question becomes, did Ricky Smith break loose at the line? And should he have accepted that offer for that extra compound to be laid down to give him a better bite when the light turned green?
What a weekend for the 24-year-old second-generation driver, Tim Neighbors. He has defeated Ricky Smith in the finals to win here in Rockingham.
You know things were tilting his way when he beat Glidden 3 rounds ago.
Well, let's go down to Brett Kepner, who is with Tim Neighbors, who has to be elated over this victory.
What a way to start 1987. The Pontiac-powered Camaro comes through. Ricky Smith apparently shook the tires, but we heard you in and out of the throttle.
Oh, I was in and out of it bad, shaking the tires all the way. Boy, am I happy. I've never been so happy in my life.
As soon as Ricky shook it, apparently he just shut it off. And congratulations. This engine, although not many people know it, as I said, is a Pontiac power plant in this Camaro.
Pontiac-powered, built it myself, along with my father at our own shop. My crew, Wayne and Homer, have really done a good job this weekend. I couldn't have done it without them.
Our congratulations to Tim Neighbors. Now, in the finals for the alcohol funny cars, it's going to be Pat Austin, another second-generation driver, and his opponent is going to be Bob Newberry, who, as we said earlier, comes into this event as the points leader in this division.
Newberry is dismounting.
Well,
I think Newberry's day is over prematurely. Newberry dropping his head, going over the Armco barrier, and Newberry is giving this one to Austin.
Obviously, something has broken on that car of Bob Newberry, and it's going to be Pat Austin, the winner of the alcohol funny car division here at Rockingham.
Bobby's got to avoid redlighting here. Then he's got to go down the strip. And, you got to be very careful, but Pat Austin gets a gift, big gift.
He's just going to take it very easy coming down and not be concerned about ET or speed, either one. He registered a whopping 87 miles an hour at 9:55, but nevertheless, it's good enough for the win. As Pat Austin has the victory, let's go down once again to Brett.
After all those 6:30 runs, who'd have thought it had been this easy?
Not me. I thought Bob was going to give us a run for our money. You know, we were ready. We had it on Barry, you know, to maybe repeat again and run another 34. We thought that would win the race, and it turned out we didn't need that.
And the 2 times you've attended IHRA national events, you've been here, the winner's circle. Congratulations again.
Thanks. It's great. And to get that record just makes it even better, you know. We're glad to be here, and we're having fun.
Kenny Bernstein's car is being worked on. He'll be in the finals of the Pro Funny Car division, and we'll have the Nitro Dragster division also coming up right after this.
Get this T-shirt free with this special TV offer for Drag Review magazine. 24 action-packed issues, only $24.95, plus IHRA membership. Call now, order Drag Review magazine, and get a free T-shirt. Drag Review, 24 issues for only $24.95. Call now, 1-800-554-9000. Operators are standing by. Use Visa, MasterCard, or pay COD. Drag Review, 24 issues, only $24.95, plus special IHRA T-shirt bonus. Tell operator your T-shirt size. Call 1-800-554-9000.
It's just been a beautiful weekend here in Rockingham as we present the All-Pro Motorcraft Pro-Am Nationals, IHRA Finals, and Pro Nitro Dragsters coming up. It'll be the kid, Darrell Gwynn, against Michael Brotherton.
You can't call Brotherton a kid, but he is a rookie driver. But the question is, how do you beat Gwynn? He's had consistent 5.4s in this meet. The best that Brotherton's been able to do is 5.6, although he did get a free pass in the last round when Holcomb redlighted. Smoke the tires. Smoke the tires. Brotherton gave it all that he had, but the consistency that crew is getting for Darrell Gwynn this year really came to the front in the finals.
There you see a 5:39. That's the low ET of the meet, and 261.62 is the top speed of the event. Let's go down to Brett Kepner, who's with Darrell Gwynn.
Well, Darrell, the big numbers just keep on coming. The reason they're honking the horn up there is because of a new IHRA ET record at 5:39, 261 miles an hour.
Well, I just run it a little further that time. I've kind of been shutting it off early every run, and it makes me feel good running it all the way through. You know, the car's been running real good. We changed one piston all day, so we're really happy with today's performance.
Now the question is, can this radical car, new car, of Jim Head. He's in his first, by the way, IHRA final ever. Can it defeat the Kenny Bernstein machine?
One last comment about the Gwin. Shutting it off a little early, turning 5.3s. Oh, well. Here is the boss, at least Gwin's boss, Kenny Bernstein against Head. Head's had kind of an interesting meet. He's had a couple of 5.9s, 250 miles an hour, 247 miles an hour. Been reasonable runs to get her to the finals. Bernstein's been knocking off 5.7s, though. And Bernstein, of course, with that stellar record in each of the last two seasons, 1986 and 1987. We told you there were favorites in each of the Pro Nitro Funnies and Pro Nitro Dragsters. One of the favorites has won, and here's the other one.
Well, Jim Head, although this is his first funny car final, reached the finals twice in dragster competition in IHRA, but he has never won. Kenny Bernstein, there you can see him in the Budweiser Quaker State Buick LeSabre, getting set to go.
Without a doubt, these are the two most exotic dragsters that have come along in quite some time. You can do all the conversation you want about the canopies and the bodies that are sprouting on all the top fuelers, but the body styles of these two funny cars have threatened to revolutionize drag racing. It looks like the rules may cut back on styles like this for next year, but right now, sit back and enjoy it, fans. These guys are fun to watch and wild styles.
I just think this old Speranza of Jim Head is a beautiful machine.
Well, I think he's picked up a little bit of the cue from Dale Armstrong and crew. Of course, the Kenny Bernstein car is the product of extensive wind tunnel testing, and you can see some of the characteristics in the Bernstein car in this machine. But Head, he really has branched out on his own. It is different, and I really commend him for that, Bob. He's taken a shot here and trying to come up with the next unfair advantage, and at least it's propelled him into the finals here.
Jim Head defeated Mark Oswald in the semifinals when, of course, Oswald broke that blower belt. But now he has his work cut out for him going against Kenny Bernstein.
In drag racing, more often than not, you race the strip, you race the conditions. But when you race against Bernstein, you've got to think about the guy sitting next to him. Oh.
Bernstein is out to a good start, and he's going to win it. Kenny Bernstein, victorious in Pro Funny cars here at Rockingham at 256.41. That's an ET of 561. Here it is again. As you can see, Kenny had the whole shot and led all the way down. Brett Kepner is with Kenny.
Well, you can hear the screams from here. 561. 256 miles per hour, one of the quickest runs ever down this drag strip.
Well, I didn't know that was going to happen. Needless to say, we were just going up there trying to repeat and run the 70 again, but it didn't shake quite as bad as that time. And Dale and Jim and Charlie and Jeff did a super job all day long.
Well, you had no major problems, and again, just like at Darlington, it was a Kenny Bernstein day.
Well, you know, it takes everything for it to happen, Brett. Needless to say, you know, ESPN's been awful good to us, too, and the Budweiser Quaker State Buick's performing good. We just hope we can keep it going, but the team does all the work. They do a super job.
Well, this win is especially important towards that World Championship, 2 in a row.
Doesn't hurt. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll see you in Bristol.
Well, we'll be back to wrap things up here at Rockingham in just a moment, and we'll be back to show you how everything stands as far as point standings are concerned right after these messages. Well, our racing is over here in Rockingham, North Carolina. Let's check now the point standings in the 4 divisions we've covered for you today. In the Pro Nitro Funny Car class, it's Kenny Bernstein with about a 700-point lead on Doc Holliday. Tom Hooper is third in points. Then in the Pro Dragster class, it's Darrell Gwynn leading Joe Amato and Michael Brotherton. Going to the Pro Stock division, Ricky Smith is on top. Second is Tim Neighbors, and third is Roy Hill. And finally, in the Alcohol Funny Car class, Bob Newberry is the leader. So we saw world records here this weekend. We saw Kenny Bernstein continue to win, and we saw an upset by a second-generation driver, Tim Neighbors.
Yeah, Tim Neighbors also with a world record. Bernstein, by the way, along with Bob Newberry in the Alcohol Funny Cars, have been the most consistent in their performances represented with their high point standings relative to the rest of the field. In the Pro Stock division, seems to be wide open, and in the dragsters, it's Gwynn and Amato. I'm still rolling in the wake of that comment from Gwynn saying that I've been shutting off early. This guy's been turning 5.3s.
Well, let's go to Brett Kepner now, who's done an excellent job in the pit area for us for his closing comments. Brett?
The 17th annual edition of the IHRA All-Pro Auto Parts Motorcraft Quality Parts Pro-Am Nationals proved once again it's one of the premier events on the International Hot Rod Association Trail. Although tricky track conditions originally put some drivers at a disadvantage, it later became a battle of brains rather than brawn. Horsepower was not the key, driving was. We'll see more excellent driving and lots more horsepower at the IHRA Spring Nationals in Bristol, Tennessee, the next event on the IHRA National Event Trail. Back to you, gentlemen.
All right, thanks for your work today, Brett, in the pit area and everywhere here at Rockingham. Today's event has been brought to you by Motorcraft, quality parts for all makes of cars and trucks. They exceed the need. And by Drag Review, all you need to know about drag racing. And we have more exciting IHRA competition coming up here on ESPN.
The Campbell Spring Nationals will be next, Bob, from Bristol, and that'll just be the third of the entire series of 8 races for the 1987 season seen here on ESPN.
Thanks for joining us. For Larry Newber and Brett Kepner, this is Bob Jenkins. So long, everyone.